Hello and welcome to History Respawned. I'm your host John Harney, and for this episode we're looking at Anno 1800. Anno 1800 is the latest in the Anno series, so some of you are surely familiar with it. Anno is going back a long time now. They've done the future, they've done the moon. Probably the most well-received game prior to this was Anno 1404, which was kind of a medieval trading, Venetian Marco Polo simulator, I guess. And as you're gathering, either from the title of the game or the images we're seeing here in the loading screen, Anno 1800 is very much kind of an industrial age type game. The Anno games more broadly are city builders, and so I'm a few hours into the game. We're going to pick up now in a few minutes, and we're going to play it for 20-30 minutes, and I'm going to talk you through it. Standard rules apply when you're watching a History Respawned episode and a strategy game, particularly if I'm the guy playing the strategy game, which is that if you're remotely familiar with this game or strategy concepts in general, I'm going to be doing very silly things. Let's go ahead and say that's because I'm going to be talking and trying to concentrate on two things at once, which is, at least partly true. So you can see right off the bat here, there's a nice historical theme to Anno 1800, lovely little artwork here, nice little kind of bits and bobs at the start, and fog. This is the game. Fog. No, let's go. So here we are. This is Ditchwater, and it's a game that kind of, although it will let things go quite slowly, it doesn't quite want to completely pause. As you can see, if I go ahead here and pause, the game goes, okay, you can't do anything. So it wants things to kind of running on a little bit. I escaped out of that. And this is Ditchwater. This is the little town that I have made. Anno games begin with, you start off with your first warehouse and you build from there. You build a marketplace. You build lots and lots of residences, and from that then you bring all these new kind of items in. So the main kind of draw really of Anno 1800, I suppose, again, is this industrial kind of theme, and also a new world / kind of a colonization theme. And we'll get onto that in a minute. So let's identify what some of these problems are here. My flour mill needs wheat, and my soap factory lacks the requisite materials. So the mechanisms of the game are fairly simple, which is you're setting up all kinds of chains of production effectively, how marks would weep or perhaps celebrate, which again, so you can start to see a natural fit for kind of a 19th century vibe. There's also a chance to go to the New World, which is something that my friends are currently supposedly doing. I have an expedition somewhere. Let's see the world map. I currently have a frigate over here investigating this New World expedition. I give him a bunch of food and things like that, and so it seems that it's fairly likely he will find a new region. And I'm hoping that the theme of the game extends to that, meaning I can make some money, because one of the big problems I have in the game is keeping afloat. At the moment, you can see there, I'm keeping my head above water, but that number is flying up and down all the time. I'm selling excess goods, I'm doing trading, all kinds of things. But in general, it seems to be drawing people in, and growth. Growth is the name of the game. The more you grow, the more your game grows. You see, or your city grows rather. And up top here, we have a number of farmers, or my worker surplus of my farmers, my worker workforce for my what are called workers, the kind of working class, I guess. Then you have the artisans, who are kind of a lower bougie type group, and they want things like, I'll show you what they want. Let's zoom in here and take advantage of this rather spiffy game engine on my admittedly rather dated kind of computer, and you see here what an artisan's house looks like. And he dreams of tinned food. I have him adequately set up in sausages and soap and bread, and there's a school nearby, so he's happy enough. This is new. Sewing machines are a new thing, but the big thing the game wants to do next is go to canned food. And so if I go to my production chain and bring us to canned food, and I swear, it's under artisans, not workers. The canned food is here. And here you get a sense of what the game wants. It wants two kind of basic primary extraction facilities, a secondary one with the resource of already producing, to end up with your tinned food. Now, this is the most kind of complex chain I've had so far. A more typical example would be sausage, where you have pig farms, and then you can have sausages. And you can start to kind of think about where all these things will go. And you see here artisan houses, and farmer kind of houses. They're much more of a kind of what they're looking for, a rural kind of pigsty, or not pigsty, but a kind of thrown together aspect. You have pubs here, which are or marketplace. Sorry, I'm getting the marketplace pub mixed up. I've put my pub next to a marketplace because I guess that's how I envision a city being. And so this is kind of what I have so far, and I have a really weird higgledy-piggledy mix of the rural and kind of the urban is slowly developing here, and then out kind of on the outskirts I put all my heavy polluting areas. And I don't have the bricks to upgrade him, so I'm going to just let that be a problem for now. So yeah, and the game tries to keep you busy. I've got a quest here to complete my expedition to the New World. This guy wants me to approach his ship. So the frigate's on its way to the New World. My schooner is currently bringing potatoes as part of a trade route, so let's leave that be. Anno is kind of a bit of a hybrid with some RTS kind of diplomacy elements. So far, at least, they're not make or break in this particular game. I have chosen a Chinese avatar for no real reason. I'm in the campaign, and so there is kind of a story to it. Your father was framed in some way, and you and your sister are trying to build up a town. It's really just a way to teach you how to play the game. These are neighbours of mine, one of whom really doesn't like me at all. The other two are iffy, and this woman is kind of friendlier, and she will trade with me. And that's kind of it. If I click on this gentleman here, it gives you some basic kind of bar chart comparison. Not much beyond that. Although Willie Wibblesock is a pretty great name for a 19th century kind of somewhere between working class and middle class type guy. The theme stuff is all great. Here we have Beryl O'Mara, who's Irish and kind of, has been corrupted in some way. That's fun. We have Anne Harlow, who's basically a pirate and doesn't like me. I'm not sure why the Qing Empire is represented here. It's not something that's shown up in the game. But it's nice to have some variety and diversity in the game avatars. So that's kind of it so far. Trade routes are fairly simple. As you can see, people who are willing to trade with me, you get to see what they want and what you can bring to them, and you kind of go from there. So I have one that's sitting dormant, and I have one that's bringing potatoes. Potatoes actually the guy that runs the prison. So history response as a game. Quickly, I've kind of run through the mechanics more than I intended to. This is a fun game. This is a good game. If you like city builders, I highly recommend it. If you've ever tried an Anno and either liked it and would like more, or maybe were turned off expecting to like it, I would definitely give this game a shot. It's more accessible than other Anno games that I've played, and it's kind of giving you a lot to do, and so far hasn't been overbearing, and at least in the campaign it seems it runs the risk of bankrupting you and then doesn't. And then, the engine is pretty and it's nice, and I've got lots of cool, nice little kind of town building ideas, and I theoretically have rural areas and urban areas, but it's all a bit higgledy-piggledy. We can go down here to the island of our nemesis, at least according to the campaign, and give you a sense, at least, of kind of what the game expects a city to look like. He has his industrial areas here by the docks, and as you can see, the game clearly kind of models pollution. Well, now it's raining, you can't see it. Excellent timing there. But you're starting to see kind of smoke hanging above these areas. He has kind of a nice city square area, some arcades, and kind of an urban area in the middle, and it's all very kind of, as you can see. It's a nice job here of kind of a 19th century idea of a pretty beautiful modern city. And we have representatives of the crown, and we have prisons, and we have all kinds of cool, nice ideas. And I quite like it because this is actually an untouched island. So I was looking for this one. This is another barely touched island. You see all these different examples of kind of what the engine can do. You see a little prison island here. You can interact with this guy. You can actually bail people out and use their skills if you want. And this is our friend, Miss Princess Ching. And so you can kind of see, it's the game is kind of giving you these other kind of NPCs to interact with. But you don't have to deal with them if you don't want to. At least the campaign, which I'm playing, I'm pretty kind of light dad mode here at this point. It's a good game. It's got lots of character. Help yourself, Gov. Lots of kind of 19th century stereotypical kind of working class kind of people. He wants me to pick up this gift he just gave me. So they like me right now. People are relatively happy. They're not thrilled, as you can see. And so, as a game this works. How does it work? Am I enjoying it as an historian? Yeah, I really like it. I think the theme works really well. it raises really interesting larger questions of the extent to which the 19th century historically and these kinds of 19th century ideas of progress and the actual progress that was happening, technological and commercial, sometimes in quotes perhaps, the progress word there, it kind of fits the theme of the game. This is something I was reading an article about recently, read articles in Kotaku and The Atlantic and other places about these notions of progress as a 19th century concept, sometimes with very specific racial components, and how that can affect games. And here in History Respawn, we've talked about this before, particularly with the Civilization series. And of course, any city builder game is going to have that kind of element to it, because of course it's driving you through this idea of progress. Although letting it sit now, actually, I'm building up a little bit of money. It's making me feel a bit better. So no clearer does come to this particular game than with this New World expedition. As you can see, I gave this gentleman some potatoes and sent him on his way. No news just yet. They're kind of on their way. And then, to all intents and purposes, once I have my New World kind of territory, I'm going to use it effectively to make money. And in my particular case, to prop up my home colony. Perhaps if I was doing a better job, my colony would be kind of, increasing the wealth, which is very kind of, historically kind of accurate and historically valid and everything else. So whether it's to prop myself up economically or, develop what I have, it kind of is what it is. And in the game itself, actually, in the campaign, which is all a bit goofy, you start out in the New World and you're called back after your father's been murdered. So you kind of have a loyal, man of color as your kind of friend and confidant. But the game isn't terribly clumsy that way. And the game leaves enough latitude, as you can see. You can kind of pick whatever avatar you like. And it's very gamey in that kind of a sense. So what are some of these examples of 19th century color that I'm kind of talking about? I think a big thing really is this kind of navigating the rural and industrial kind of side-by-side kind of element.
I always appreciate your help, however overdue.
And another is this kind of idea. So, for example, my church is quite central here because that seems to keep everybody fairly happy. We have lots of fire stations because I kept getting fires. I wanted to react to them, which I suppose also is kind of 19th century accurate. And as you can see here, every single kind of production outpost you point on has a, fairly 19th century, perhaps sometimes stereotypically so, 19th century looking person there, ready to kind of, whip something at you with a London accent if necessary. Nice little touch here as well. We have our local editor doing our paper. And you can see I'm kind of constantly in trouble here. This is my regular monthly thing. People are upset with the canned food shortage. And it allows you to edit this with kind of good old-fashioned propaganda. So I quite like that. And kind of cheesier kind of ideas like hypnosis, which is quite a funny one. And then distraction, which I'm not kind of used to. Let's see what this one does. So this is actually kind of a nice little kind of a comment actually on 19th century newspapers and media since then. So I do that to avoid people getting too upset. As you can see, the money is going down all the time. And perhaps we'll see live in History Respawn episode my losing a campaign, which would be kind of hysterical. Kind of fitting where we are. So Beryl O'Mara is very happy. I like propaganda. Princess Ching doesn't like that I use propaganda. I've lost some kind of a bonus. There we go. So the game has a lot there, and like a lot of strategy games that I think are effective, Crusader Kings 2 is a very good example of this, there's a lot of stuff to sink your teeth into, but you can get by reasonably well, especially single player, working on tooling around on your own without stressing about it too much. Now I can have visitors come in, which is kind of an interesting thing, which is new, and people can come in and they can kind of see my little seaside town. So you have this nice little kind of, veranda, dock, quay type thing going on here. And they can head right into seeing my sailing ships and my framework knitters and all these interesting people. So, as I say, we've talked a lot on History Respawn about the civilization issue and the progress trap. And the Anno series, like I say, not only do they face the same trap, I don't know how they couldn't face it. I think that's part of the reason that Anno 1800 has been so well received. Anno games usually come out and people like me play them, especially history nerds, and kind of enjoy the setting. The couple before this kind of were sci-fi nerds, actually, and scientific stuff. But, you know, you kind of play it and you move on. This game seems to have a bit of an impact. I've even seen people say that it's the best one since Anno 1404, which is actually quite a big deal, seeing as that was a very well-received game indeed. And again, I think there's this natural kind of, you know, connection. There's this natural fluency between the theme, where everyone is supposedly a captain of industry, or not everyone is, but the captains of industry are the driving personalities, and that everyone's progressing forward, and that money is the be-all and the end-all, and little nods to the reality of life for kind of, you know, your average kind of person. So, for example, I can upgrade this house, and she will then become a working-class person. So let's do that. She's become a man, which is kind of a nice little fluke. I'm now low on pork sausages, at least for the time being. And you can see now he has this whole separate amount of needs. Let's go to a worker town, or worker house rather, and upgrade that. And you'll see the same thing happens. A content worker becomes an artisan who's slightly more well-to-do. And as the game goes on, we're going to encounter more and more changes like this. I'm currently in... it goes through ages, and you basically upgrade kind of through population. As you can see, I need a lot of artisans for the next population level, and then everything will start to get bigger. And in fact, so if you look at my balance right now is pretty grim. If I switch to my little upgrade thing here, and if I just upgrade a bunch of worker houses to artisan houses, that usually gives me some breathing room on the weekly budget. There you go. I just reached a new status of being a city. And it's all based on this idea of upgrading kind of the local civil population to these new kinds of people. Now, I just push myself right to the brink in terms of the working class people I have available. Artisans clearly will not work, apparently, in a working class job. Farmers are a little bit kind of grim as well, so I'll upgrade some farms. And you can see the numbers kind of changing. And now I've gone from minus 400 per pay cycle to minus 30. And then depending on trades and stuff, that might even go up. But there we are again. Various maintenance costs are driving me through the roof. So the game really wants me to, and I think I'm failing the cycle now and I'm going to get in trouble while I'm recording this. The game really wants me to be continually building houses, bringing in farmers, letting them tend to all these natural resources. Like, you know, like here we see a sheep farm and things like this. Upgrade them as soon as I can to working class people who will then work in places like bakeries and tinneries and things like this. And then the artisans, they will be the ones who basically, they're the ones who make glass, which is their kind of main, kind of resource. Up the top here we have wood, bricks, steel, beams, and windows. And windows are kind of the big thing that you need to upgrade from a worker household to an artisan household. And every time you get this whole set of new kinds of things. So what I've been doing a lot in the game is I've been building really cool looking stuff like, you know, zoos, for example, and not really worrying too much about how much it's going to cost. This now will wait until I have the actual resources. Well, that's not going to work. It needs a compound, so let's forget that. And I've been kind of having lots of fun with that. But because I haven't been paying attention to the cycle, I'm probably going to, you know, lose the game, or maybe I'm assuming because the campaign has been very, very friendly so far, there'll be some kind of magical, here's 20 grand and here's some score penalty or something. And so it's kind of been really intriguing the extent to which the game really wants you to embrace that cycle and effectively in God mode be driving all these people doing their version of the American dream or whatever on earth it's going to be. So this artisan thing, except for the windows, I've barely got into. You can see that I've got one glassmaker on site, I've got one sand mine, and somebody's making windows. The workers I've done more of, and the farmers I've mostly kind of tapped out. And you have all kinds of goofy things, like you have parks and you have ornaments, you have pubs, down to residences and dirt roads versus paved roads and everything else. So yeah, the game, you know, really aggressively drives you towards this kind of churn and this kind of progress idea and this kind of economic progress idea. Generally speaking, although there's definitely kind of a Caucasian kind of working class kind of aspect to all these people, as you can see, I was able to choose like a Chinese avatar, and you can do all these kind of different things. I think the larger issue, if you would have concerns about this kind of progressive mentality dominating a game, would be this complete exclusivity to the idea of capitalism as a driving force in progress and advancement. I think one of the kind of modest ways in which it interacts with that is in the very obvious damage you're doing to the location that you're around. And if, for example, I put a bunch of farmers here, they're going to start to get frustrated that they're basically, living in smog and muck. But beyond that, the games kind of want you to grow and grow and grow. As you can see, I'm kind of living and dying on trades here, and it just kind of pushes you all the time, and it's quite, it's quite gamified. I kind of wish it worked like Crusader Kings 2 or Europa Universalis 4, because at this point in my particular gaming life where I have small kids, being able to pause everything and figure stuff out and run again, I really, really, really miss that. Even though the pace is really quite sedate at normal speed. For example, in trying to talk through the game a little bit, you can see all these different issues that are kind of rising up and all the various inefficiencies. And of course, now the town, the city as it is now, has got to a point where it probably wants you to move stuff around and have better chains and chains of production. And I'm just not doing it. You see the model here again, going back to Bright Sands, where the Nemesis is. And here's the big news. Here are my guys out of the New World. Let's see what their deal is. Huh. This is my first time doing this. This is all news to me. And this is a vessel that killed Mr. Good, I think is my character's father. So this is kind of an interesting attempt to bring storytelling back into the campaign, which frankly I kind of keep forgetting is there. I'm going to take the coward's way out. Well, it says here there's a bonus success chance. Let's do it. Let's go for the fight and see how the game handles it. So we must act quickly. Again, it says here bonus success chance. I'm just going to be shameless and go with our 20% here. And there we are. It looks like we've gotten away for it. The expedition may be free to find Sarmento now. Sarmento is this kind of organization out somewhere in the New World that has been entangled in your father's death. And that's about as much attention as I paid to the story, to be perfectly honest. So they're setting up camp, so it looks like I have myself a colony. Let's see, what are we going to do? I guess we'll continue. And we'll get another update soon. Well, there was me hoping I'd be able to show off our new colony in this particular episode, but maybe not. So if this is the model he's building, he's got a World's Fair doing its thing. He's got all these lovely little parks that are assembled together. I have a bunch of moderately sad people drinking schnapps and eating sausage. So I feel like the game is really, this particular game is following more or less my worldview there, that it's working okay. This is a mysterious alternate universe. Everyone lives on these small islands. But again, I think it works. It works fairly well. Now, one last thing. What I can also do, my ship is currently here on a trade route. I can take control of this guy and kind of send him wherever I want. And in fact, the frigate that's currently working on the expedition was doing exactly that. I'd used him for some kind of light kind of battle stuff. Again, I don't think it's terribly necessary. The game really kind of, in my opinion, keeps you busy enough with trying to keep everybody happy with all these kinds of work and design changes. And again, it really is built on this kind of idea of efficiency and everything else. There's a new world, old world kind of vibe to the game, as you've seen with the expedition, and that's definitely kind of a core concept and an important idea in the game. But it really feels like you're kind of role-playing the British Empire in the 1850s, despite the fact that we're looking at, 100 years to really, quite actually a couple of centuries after the discovery of the New World. It really feels like kind of like a mid-19th or early to mid-19th century kind of a role-playing vibe fitting the title. And you're more or less playing Britain. I mean, yes, France and Germany are comparable, but everything about it, down to the fine Cockney London accents out of our happy farmer, who for some reason has an urban London accent, that's what you're doing. So if you're happy enough with that, and if you're cool with that kind of an idea, you basically I think you should play this game. I think it's really good. I think that if you've ever been tempted by a city builder, and if you're if like they used to Respawn people like Bob and myself, you have difficulty turning down a game with a strong theme, Anno 1800 kind of really needs to be on your radar. Sadly, we haven't had any kind of, big kind of moments in this particular episode where riots happen and fires happen and all these kinds of things. But again, I'm keeping the sausage and the schnapps rolling, and that's been able to hold off riots for the most part. And I've been able to kind of mind my own business and do my own thing. Willy Wibblesock is here to take some stuff from me, and that's kind of automated. I think the game is doing its best to stop me from bankrupting myself. So they're on the seas for 2 weeks, so chances are they'll find it soon. Who knows? That's it. So he wants me to go to the New World. He wants me to build a zoo. This is my friend from the New World who came back with me.
It is easy to dismiss these things as trivial, but history.
So little bit iffy. Very kind of video gamey. So you have quest book stuff, so if you're better than me at the game, which hopefully you are, and you're kind of getting your chains running and everything's moving smoothly, the game kind of wants to give you things to do. Also, if I had a ship to spare to help him and I've left it too late now, it is a nice way to infuse yourself with cash and kind of get away from it. The game looks lovely, the game works really well. As you can see the kind of costume and stuff. They had a lot of fun, a lot of enjoyment with it. It just works really well. So, final thoughts from a kind of an historian's point of view. I think what I like about it, despite the fact that the campaign is very handholdy, as in fairness you would expect a campaign to be, and the artwork and the whole vibe of the game certainly brings you down a kind of a specific avenue, the game is very heavily driven by its mechanics. And so, yes, that means that the game subscribes its very specific view of 19th century progress, the Industrial Revolution, and everything else. But I mean, in fairness, if you don't know that coming in, you weren't paying attention. And it's kind of how the game works. And so if it's beyond the pale for you, you know that going in. And then because it's so gamey, even though there's lots of good work in terms of making it feel accurate and feel like a good game and everything else and pretty well run, it embraces the video game aesthetic. So for example, up here I have a trade union building which has a fire station, a trade union building with a range which is including my potato farm and my brick factories, and it flat out has items that equip gaming bonuses. I have a bear that I was just given in a quest, you saw that 10 minutes ago. So that when I build the zoo, the bear is going to give the city some kind of a bonus. And I have a malt house here waiting to be built so I can get the beer up and running. The bakery is producing this, and it's all part of the various chain. And so the game is it's embracing its gaminess and it's embracing its mechanics. And I think it's done a good job of kind of, not that it skims with the costume stuff and the character design and everything else, but it's definitely more than surface level. It's very well done, but it's not why you're playing the game, if that makes any sense. And so it kind of, you theoretically, I think, kind of become embraced in this idea. You're getting enough atmosphere to enjoy what is a well-run city building game. So here we are again with the expedition, and the game does a lot of this stuff. Let's distract you for a couple of minutes and give you something fun to do. So here we are. Ramon says, local man Ramon. Well, there you go. There's some interesting color commentary, I suppose. Are talking about the map. Where do we go from here? Do we take it upriver or into the jungle? I say we go upriver and see what's going on there. And now they're being chased again. This is in trouble. So are we going to go for the rapids? Let's see if we can get these guys in an impromptu landslide. Well, this is all going very well. I must say I'm getting flashbacks to Choose Your Own Adventure books from my youth. This is fantastic fun. In its own way. I will say it's a nice break from kind of steadily but inexorably going bankrupt, which is basically what's happening to me in the main game. And now we encounter, I guess, the bad guy. Let's go ahead and say this and see if they automatically slay my poor castle. Here we go. So our father sold an island to these people, whomever they were. Let's go ahead and take her side a little bit on this. I don't know how I feel about people in the New World referring to a steamship as an Iron Dragon. Although admittedly our own character's not before that. So it's all a bit, you make your decision, you know, is this kind of an in-character kind of description? What are they doing here? You see the kind of frustrating Ubisoft achievements popping up there. And this is it. This is the beginnings of the new world, which, as I say, the game has completely trained and set me up to shamelessly exploit economically as quickly as I possibly can.
What can the henchmen of the Empire do to us that the Perforians haven't already? Please, Miss Summon.
So this is intriguing, actually. This is the plot, as I said, is that your father was murdered, effectively, and your uncle, who almost certainly killed him, is kind of causing you trouble all the time. We know that there's been some kind of a problem here with the New World, and now we're meeting these people in the New World who are heavily accented and darker skinned, who are talking me through stuff, and I don't mean to peer into the future, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be lots of right-click and collect enough materials to rebuild going on here. So as you can see, the plot has gotten kind of goofy, but the campaign's very effective at teaching you how to play the game effectively. And I think that once I have learned how to set up a second colony in the New World and kind of manage the money that way, I'll basically just I'll leave it go. So you see here, I don't know if reading between the lines is a little bit too harsh, but there's some pretty clear, obvious things. Like, the game is pushing you towards oil as kind of like the top tier resource. Really, I haven't started exploiting it yet myself. And even the little touches with the graphical design or with the art design to show pollution and show kind of the very obvious impact on the land of this new technology. I think the critiques are there. So the game becomes very interesting in terms of the tone and how it's working. Then, perhaps I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, although I don't see a reason not to give it the benefit of the doubt. But I feel there's like this implicit critique of looking at this as a one-note kind of a thing, and it's constantly got one foot in kind of a video gamey, fun, goofy, you know, talking head with an accent versus versus something kind of more nuanced. I think that's kind of where we are in 2020, and it's kind of a strength of kind of video games as kind of an idea, is that at the end of the day, it does make sense to have this kind of goofy, you know, mechanics-driven, almost feels like a callback to early 1990s gaming of these kind of talking heads in a Civ 3, Civ 4 kind of style. I think the game is making it work. But, you know, I'd recommend giving this game a shot and making your own mind up about that. Very, very, very strong on theme. The mechanics are quite solid and are quite fun. And as I've seen many people describe it, it's one of those good old-fashioned, you know, you click it once, you click it twice, hours have passed, you don't know how it happened. So I suppose go ahead if you dare. And if the idea of, you know, taking advantage, or what's the word I'm looking for, if the idea of exploiting a clay deposit to build bricks, to build roads, to build a road to a salt mine, to further develop glass, to build windows, to keep artisans happy, to upgrade them to industrialists, it's appealing to you, which, as I must confess, it's very appealing to me, then this is probably the game for you, or certainly a game for you. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to see about using all these precious metals and oil springs to effectively kind of save my people back in the old world. Let's go back to the old world here, and my little guys, and see how they're doing. And yeah, we will see where it goes from there. Can I use the new world not just to save Ditchwater, which on second thoughts I wish I'd renamed, but in fact to help it prosper? And indeed, is that not what happened in the end anyway? I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back again soon. We've got a podcast coming up soon, and we'll have another episode soon. I've got a couple of games I'd like to dig into. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator is there, and it's coming up in the next few weeks. I was playing Nantucket, which is a similar period of time from this, but a very different style of game, and I might throw up a shorter one on that. We always love hearing from you. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/historyrespawned. You can always find us at historyrespawned.com for video clips of the YouTube channel and also, of course, the podcast. So thank you so much for watching. We always appreciate people coming by and hanging out, and we very much look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.